in the wake of the Sandy Hook school tragedy. In fact, sitting beside First Lady Michelle Obama tonight will be the parents of Hadia Pendleton. She was the 15-year-old Chicago Honor Roll student who performed in the inaugural parade only to be gunned down days later. Several House Democrats will also be bringing people touched by gun violence. And our next guest is one of those House members, Congresswoman Rosa of Connecticut, who's joining us from the Cannon Rotunda on Capitol Hill. Welcome back into the War Room, Congresswoman DeLauro.
Thank you very much.
So before we get into the minutia of what we expect out of the speech tonight, who are you bringing to the State of the Union tonight, and why is that?
Well, I'm very, very honored to have with me tonight, and I wish he could be on as well. And that is the brother of one of the teachers, Vicky Soto. Her brother Carlos is with me tonight, and Vicky and Carlos's family are from Stratford, Connecticut, which I represent. And Vicky is truly a true hero. She hid some of her students in the closet, and then she stood in front of the others to protect them, and then she was murdered as one of the 6 teachers in the Sandy Hook Elementary School. And Carlos is at the Stratford High School. He's a sophomore. He's a wonderful, wonderful young man, and he placed a call to me, unbeknownst to his parents, to want to come in to speak with me about what happened to them and their family. This is not just about numbers. This is every single parent, sibling, relatives. This affects their lives tremendously. And you know, the first question that he asked me when we sat down was, what are you going to do? Which is the right question to ask. What are we going to do as a Congress? And what are we going to do as individuals to stand up for those families, those at Newtown, those at Oak Creek, those in Aurora, and families around the country who have lost loved ones.
Well, I want to ask you, Congresswoman DeLauro, a little bit about that. The question that he asked you is, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. It's pretty clear what you want to do. It's pretty clear what a lot of like-minded colleagues of yours want to do. But you're sitting in a chamber that's populated by a lot of people who don't want to do exactly what you want to do. One of them, Steve Stockman, is bringing Ted Nugent, the gun-loving, Obama-hating Ted Nugent, to the speech tonight. I mean, so does your dance partner tonight understand that what you're up against in that chamber and that legislation is going to be difficult to push through?
Well, look, I think we understand, you know, if this were easy, we would have had this done a while ago. But I think the Newtown Sandy Hook experience, which I've characterized as the slaughter of innocence, has created a new environment. And I think that there is a and it is difficult, but that's not the way we should approach this. We are looking at some very common sense measures. For instance, let's ban the high-capacity magazines. Let's take a look at the loopholes in background checks. Let's close them down. And yes, the assault-style weapons should not be in civilian life. There are many people on both sides of the aisle who concur with that effort. And yes, we should have mental health services. So what we ought to be doing is listening to the families, listening to their stories, listening to them as to what they believe our responsibility is in terms of moving forward. We are not talking about taking people's guns away. We are talking about some common sense measures which we ought to be able to pass in a bipartisan way in this institution. That's the way we have to approach this. Not that it's a tough fight. We've got to climb a mountain. We need to move on behalf of these families and the millions of families who have lost loved ones over the years.
Yeah, and I think that sort of your energy on this, clearly infectious. The president has said what he will. The vice president, as you well know, has been just as supportive as you have been of this. But again, we're looking at the House of Representatives as it is. And how do you think right now, with your experience in Congress, how do you think this gun legislation play is going to work out in this Congress?
Well, I think we have said is we're not all of like minds, but I'm hoping that people can be persuaded, and that we will be able to, to move forward on the several measures that the president has proposed. It is not all-encompassing, but they are very, very well defined, and there is a consensus in the nation, not just me. But when you get, over 90% of the people saying, let's close down the loopholes, when you've got almost over 60% saying a ban on assault weapons, high percentages on this. This is just not me. This is not just one person or a group of people who have been, who support this effort. There is a new environment in this country, and should we take it on? We can't guarantee how it will come out, but our job is to take this on with great strength, with the voice of the American people behind us.
Well, if you were in a pulpit, I think a lot of people would be just sort of, whooping and wooing over this, so people who support what you support. Tell me, Congresswoman, before we let you go, tell me about something fun about this speech that people who don't get to be in that chamber don't get to experience. What's the really cool thing about being at the State of the Union?
I've been in the Congress for 22 years. This is my 23rd year. It is always a thrill to be in that chamber. The history, the tradition of that speech, a bicameral effort, members of the cabinet, the Supreme Court, the diplomatic corps. There is, and the launching of the president's agenda over the next 4 years. It is a very, very special evening, and I really am so pleased that Carlos Soto is here with me for him to see it, especially since the president is going to address the issue of gun violence, and that puts a very, very important face on this issue in this nation.
Okay, well, Rosa DeLauro, go get your aisle seat right now. We thank you for joining us in the War Room tonight.